Thanks for joining us. An inquiry into the UK's intervention in Libya has called the 2011 humanitarian bombing campaign ill-conceived and based on erroneous assumptions. The report by the British Foreign Affairs Committee gives a damning verdict on the government's actions, arguing the decision to intervene in the country also helped to fuel the rise of ISIL. RT's Anastasia Churkina takes a closer look.
Following the Chilcot inquiry analyzing Britain's shortcomings when it comes to the Iraq War, now the House of Commons Foreign Affairs Committee releases a critical report, this time looking at UK's intervention in Libya in 2011. The key findings focus on the United Kingdom's inability to having analyzed properly the nature of rebellion in Libya following events as they unraveled, as well as not considering enough political solutions and alternatives and not looking into the extent of the threat to civilians posed by the Gaddafi government at the time. Back then, David Cameron was celebrating the overthrow of his government.
The ceasefire is still being breached, and it is absolutely right for us to keep up our pressure under UN Security Council 1973.
And if we don't sort out the current problems, the risk is again of a failed pariah state festering on Europe's southern border, threatening our security, pushing people across the Mediterranean, and creating a more dangerous and uncertain world for Britain and for all our allies.
But did the British government actually understand the full context of what was going on in Libya at the time and what kind of consequences would follow? For more on this report, we're now joined by Mr. Daniel Kawczynski, MP, and one of the authors of this inquiry.
This report tries to caution future governments in responding in the knee-jerk reaction that the Cameron government did over this issue. All the Conservative MPs were united on this report, and it was a cross-party report. We've got to take the message to our own government. Bearing in mind Chilcot, bearing in mind what has happened in Libya, I think the bar that Mrs. May would have to jump over now in taking British armed forces to war of this kind has just been raised that much higher. You couldn't describe a worse situation for the country itself. I think huge lessons have to be learned. And look, has our intervention in Libya led to a better situation today than it was 5 years ago? I would argue not.
And RT correspondent William Whiteman has travelled to Sirte, a former Islamic State stronghold, and witnessed the horror of Libya's chaos with his own eyes.
Oh. There's booby traps inside this house.
This is just the start of it. They need to advance from here as well. This is just a warm-up, essentially. Just us, just looking.
These are everywhere.
After a short while of searching, we were able to find the location of the execution by matching the contours of the shoreline to images of the incident.
It is Liberation Day in Libya. The transitional government is declaring the country free.
You have won your revolution.
Your friends in Britain and in France will stand with you as you build your democracy.
Democracy, a new future for this country.
The great new Libya rising up.
New page for the Libyan people, the start of a process to establish democracy.
Libya is in for a period of horrendous chaos.
It's going to be an ineffective, powerless regime.
It's going to be a war, warring feuds, tribal feuds that is going to go on forever.
ISIS has gained a foothold in Libya.
The country is a haven for ISIS and jihadists.
Libya is going to be a launch pad for an attack on Europe.
Toppling Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a bad guy, but you know what? Libya is an absolute chaos and war zone.
If they cannot get themselves together, yes, it will be a failed state.